Pricing Models for a Successful Business. This course expands on the topics in the Introduction to Pricing course. We will focus on the pricing models a small business can adopt and delve into how a small business owner can set prices, calculate costs, assess competitors, provide value to customers, and adapt pricing to changing market conditions. The course has 6 key objectives. 1. Explain why pricing is important. 2. List the different pricing models. 3. Explain how to use a cost-based pricing model. 4. Explain how to use a customer-based pricing model. 5. Explain how to use a competition-based pricing model. And 6. Identify the pricing model for a business. Some of the questions answered in this course are: how do I set prices and succeed using the cost-based pricing model? How do I set prices and succeed using the customer-based pricing model? How do I set prices and succeed using the competitor-based pricing model? How do I perform a break-even analysis? How do I determine which pricing model is best for my business? Let's get started. Let's begin by reviewing the major points discussed in the Introduction to Pricing course. In that course, we discussed pricing as part of the marketing mix, pricing as it relates to sales promotion, common pricing mistakes, and various pricing models. Pricing is one of the 4 P's of the marketing mix, along with product, promotion, and place. Price is the only component that generates revenue. Product, promotion, and place are all cost centers. However, the determination of price is influenced by the costs incurred by creating the product's promotion, and the place in which it is sold. Other pricing influences include competition, market conditions, brand, and quality of the product. At various points in a product's life cycle, a firm needs to come up with a marketing model. This involves selecting the target market and performing product positioning. Usually, there has to be a balance between product quality and price. In this way, price plays an important role in the marketing mix. Pricing will always be determined by these trade-offs among the marketing mix elements. Pricing is very important in sales promotion because it determines the market positioning of a product. Skim pricing is where the organization sells at a high price, targeting the customers who are less price sensitive at a time when the product is new to the market and there are fewer competitors. Penetration pricing is where the organization tries to maximize the number of customers for one product, typically a new product, and to increase its market share by lowering the price. Profit is only considered for the long term in this strategy. Leader pricing is where a product is sold at a lower price to attract customers with the assumption that, once attracted, they will also buy premium products. This is also called a loss leader because the product is often sold at a loss. Premium pricing is where the product is priced at the high end of the possible price range to create a sense of perceived quality and attract status-conscious customers. With differentiated pricing, products are sold to different customers at different prices. With psychological pricing, pricing is set in such a way that, looking at the price, the customer feels it is low. For example, $3.99 instead of $4. When using discounts in sales, pricing is based on attracting price-sensitive customers to the store. Common pricing mistakes include not having a model or not sticking to the model you decided on, underestimating the costs involved in running the business, using only low prices to compete with other players, setting a pricing model and never modifying it to suit changing conditions. In addition, some business owners make the mistake of being unaware of legal issues related to pricing. Antitrust law prohibits conspiring between firms to fix prices, corporate mergers that can result in marked reduction in competition in a particular market, and hostile acts with the goal of achieving or maintaining monopoly power in a market. If you are using a loss leader pricing model, you have to make sure that the advertised product is in stock and sold at the advertised price. Various laws prohibit price discrimination, which gives customers the advantage. Also, if a dominant player in the industry forces some buyers to pay a higher price than others, it can be considered a violation of antitrust laws. In the Introduction to Pricing course, we introduced 3 pricing models. Cost-based pricing only considers the costs needed to produce the product and the desired profit margin. There are many ways to calculate cost-based pricing, but all of them are based in costs and include a markup for profit. For example, if the cost to produce a product is $1 and the company needs a 10% profit margin, the price will be set at $1.10. Customer-based pricing. Customer-based pricing is also called value-based pricing. In this, the firm first analyzes the customers to understand what they may be willing to pay for a product or service for the transaction to be profitable. The firm then charges the price each customer is willing to bear. A garage sale is a good example of the use of customer-based pricing, where a set price may be negotiated by the buyer. Competition-based pricing. In the competition-based pricing model, prices are set using the price of the competitors' products. This model is used in industries with 1 or 2 dominant companies. Sometimes this model is referred to as follow the leader. In the remainder of this course, we will explore these price models in more detail and explain some of the ways you can evaluate which price model is most appropriate for your business. We'll start by discussing cost-based pricing. As we mentioned, the cost-based pricing model sets a price by calculating the costs for a product and then adding markup. As a business owner, you will need to know what your costs are in order to use this model to set prices. To implement a cost-based pricing model, you need to calculate the costs incurred by producing, marketing, and distributing your product or service. By calculating costs correctly, you can eliminate unprofitable services and set the prices to maximize profits. When evaluating your costs, you should separate them into 2 categories: variable costs and fixed costs. Variable costs are costs that change depending on the number of units you sell. Typical examples are raw material or labor, depending on your business model. Fixed costs are costs that are not directly related to creating a product or providing a service. Fixed costs may include overhead costs like taxes, rent, insurance, and marketing. By separating your costs into these categories, you can perform different calculations to discover what factors are most influential on your prices. By changing these factors, you can reduce costs and increase profit, or you can decrease prices to increase sales and market share. The first step in determining your price based on costs is to calculate the variable cost per unit. If your company produces crackers and sells them by the box, you will need to figure out how much the ingredients, which are the raw materials for the crackers, cost you for each box. You must also add in the cost of each box and any variable, meaning hourly wages. As an example, let's assume the following numbers on an annual basis. 50,000 boxes of crackers are sold. The cost of raw materials is $5,000. The cost of the boxes is $1,000. Waged labor costs are $10,000. Shipping costs are $1,000. In this example, you have a total of $17,000 of variable costs. Divide the total variable costs by the number of units you produce a year. This is your variable cost per unit. In this example, each box of crackers costs you 34 cents to produce. Now you can add a markup to this cost to set a price. Let's say you decide to add a markup of 100%. In this case, you would set the price as 68 cents per box. 100% of 34 cents equals 34 cents, and 34 cents plus 34 cents equals 68 cents. Note that in this example, your price does not consider your fixed costs. You'll have to be sure that this price will cover your long-term fixed costs as well. This is usually done by a break-even analysis, which is covered later in this course. To make sure your price also covers your fixed costs, you need to calculate the average fixed cost per unit. Let's continue with our previous example and assume our annual fixed costs are $20,000. To calculate average fixed costs, divide your total fixed costs by the number of units. In this example, we have an average fixed cost of 40 cents per unit. Now add your average fixed cost to the variable cost of each unit, which we've already calculated as 34 cents. Our total cost per unit in this example is 74 cents per box. In the first example above, after we calculated the variable costs, we added a 100% markup to the variable costs. 100% of 34 cents equals 34 cents, and 34 cents plus 34 cents equals 68 cents. There are many ways to calculate costs. But suppose we wanted to wait to calculate both fixed and variable costs first, before adding markup? Not a problem. We've already calculated variable costs at 34 cents per box, plus fixed costs at 40 cents per box, for a total of 74 cents per box. We still haven't added markup. The final step is to add your markup. Let's assume we want to add 100% markup on our costs. What is 100% of 74 cents? 74 cents. So our total price per unit in this example would be 74 cents plus 74 cents, $1.48. Let's look at some tips that will help you succeed with the cost-based pricing model. You can decrease waste, increase the efficiency of inventory management, set a clear process and guidelines, and increase your markup. Carefully analyze how your price might need to change based on sales. The customer-based pricing model involves using information about your customers to set a price. This model is sometimes called value-based pricing. Ultimately, the price your customer is willing to pay is what determines how much your goods or services are worth. To implement a customer-based pricing model, you need to study the market in order to understand how much your customers can and are willing to pay. You also need to know the different types of customers in the market, since the value placed on your product may vary depending on the type of customer. Finding this out requires you to do some research. Traditional customer research done by large businesses is an expensive affair. As the owners of a small business with a customer-based pricing model, you will need a cheaper alternative. How can small businesses perform customer research? Perform customer satisfaction studies. This can be as simple as asking a person on the street how they feel about your product or service, or as complex as conducting large-scale formal surveys. You can also conduct professional or informal focus group research. Send product samples to customers and ask for their feedback. Ask your customers what they feel about your products and services. Use free survey tools available online. Perform research on customer decision-making processes. You can perform your own survey or use data from other market researchers to figure out how your customers decide to purchase products. Measure the effect of your prices on customer behavior. Analyze how prices affect customer behavior at two different price points. The simple way to do this is to set your product at two different prices, then calculate out the total revenue that you made at each price and compare them. Number of items sold at original price multiplied by original price equals revenue 1. Number of items sold at new price multiplied by new price equals revenue 2. Compare revenue 1 to revenue 2 to see which price earned you the most revenue. Monitor social media. Customers often give feedback about products or services on social media. Find out what they say about your prices and make adjustments if required. You can also use social media to conduct surveys and even to market your products. Research customer perception of your product. To do this, you need to find out the sales figures for various market segments. You also need to analyze the attitudes of your customers in different segments. Price elasticity is the measure of how much customer demand changes as a result of a price change. Determining price elasticity requires using various research methods like test markets and analyzing historical market data. As a small business owner, you may not need to know the specific price elasticity numbers for your product or service. However, you should have a general awareness of how much of a price change will affect customer demand. Will a price increase of 50 cents seem like a big deal to your customers, or will they barely notice? Oftentimes in the customer-based pricing model, you will offer your product at different prices to different segments of your target market. These segments are divided based on the customer's requirements, attitudes, culture, and various other characteristics. To identify the market segment correctly, you need to clearly identify the segment you need to target, measure the size of the market segment accurately, and determine the impact it will have. Assess how effectively you could promote your product or service in the segment, and assess the sustainability of the market segment. Markets may be segmented based on geographic segmentation, where you segment the market according to geographic criteria, such as nations, states, and regions. Demographic segmentation, where the market is segmented based on variables such as age, gender, occupation, and education level. Behavioral segmentation, where the market is segmented based on customers' attitude, use of the product, and knowledge levels. Psychographic or lifestyle segmentation, where you divide or segment the market based on the customer's lifestyle. Benefits-based segmentation, where you segment the market based on the benefits expected by the customers. Cultural segmentation, which is segmenting the market based on the cultural origins of the customers. And buyer type segmentation, where you segment the market based on buyer type, such as direct consumers, businesses who may purchase in bulk quantities, or governments who may offer long-term contracts. Think about how the customers in each of these segments might value your product or service differently. Remember, charging different prices to your market segments is generally legal, except, of course, for cases like race, gender, religion, etc., but can be considered illegal if it is determined to have anti-competitive implications. As always, if you are unsure whether you are complying with the law, consult your legal professional. As an example, let's say Sharon runs a consulting service and charges $200 per hour. After some time, she finds that she is losing customers. Sharon sends out some customer satisfaction surveys to her former clients and finds that while the customers are happy with their services, most have not returned because they find that paying for 1 or 2 hours of her time is not cost-effective. She contacts those customers and renegotiates her rate with them, ranging from $125 to $150 per hour. She also creates a pricing schedule that offers a lower rate per hour to new customers who purchase 10 hours up front. How do you ensure that your customers continue to purchase your product when your competitor is charging lower prices? With the customer-based pricing model, the key is finding ways to get customers to value your product or service over alternatives. How do you add value to your business and communicate it to the customer? Customers are usually willing to pay extra for a quality product. Here are a few tips to add value. Create a signature customer experience. Analyze your competitors and decide what will make you stand out. Devise marketing strategies to ensure that customers perceive this value. Finally, anywhere you go, remember that you are the face of your business, and keep promoting it. When pricing your product, also consider that the price paid by the customer is more than just monetary. To the customer, the price includes the time spent purchasing, researching, or learning the product, the anxiety caused by misplaced orders of faulty products, and other factors. To add value to the customer, the product or service itself, the impact of the product or service on the customer's life, and the buying experience are all part of the product or service's value. Think about house painting services. Customers rarely choose a service provider based only on cost. Customers are usually willing to pay more for the services of a provider who has a reputation for quality. Perhaps a painter provides a value-added service like tarp coverage for an entire room to avoid property damage if paint drips or sprays around. The painter may also have an on-time guarantee. Developing a high perceived value and actually providing that value to the customer is the way you avoid price wars with competitors who charge lower prices. When using the competition-based pricing model, a business sets its prices based on where its competitors set theirs. Usually, this model is used in industries where there are only a few competitors vying for the same market. Like the customer-based pricing model, the competitor-based model relies heavily on research. However, instead of analyzing your potential customer base, you should evaluate your competitors' prices and what contributes to those prices. This could include your competitors' capabilities, market segments, revenue, pricing models, marketing strategies, value-added services, future plans, work culture, strengths and weaknesses. You can learn about your competitors from their promotional materials, trade shows, conventions, vendors, government reports, trade publications, newspapers, blogs, website, or simply by visiting their establishment. Once you've done the initial research, you will be able to make better decisions about pricing to compete. Deciding whether you want to price above, below, or on par with the competition depends on what your goal is. You can price above the competition if you want to cater to customers who are status conscious and want exclusivity. The higher price may signal to the customers that your service or product is for the high-end customer. However, you will have to come up with strategies to market your product or service effectively for this group of customers. If your goal is to increase your market share as soon as possible, you can try setting a price below that of your competitors. In this model, you don't care about your profit margins. Your plan is to increase the prices once you have captured a major share of the market. However, this model can backfire because you could start a price war with your competitors. If you are a small business, competing with larger businesses on price is not an option, because they can always price lower than you and put you out of business. If you want to avoid a price war, you can price on par with your competitor. Then you can try competing based on value. Small businesses can offer customized service and better customer support because of the relatively fewer customers and fewer employees to manage. A large business will mostly have standardized customer support, which cannot be as flexible as the support offered by a small business. Chirac has an established software company that delivers financial tracking solutions. He has only 2 other competitors in his market, and each of these competitors sells their software for $49.95. He sets the price for his software at $49.95 as well, because he can still cover his costs and make a profit at this price. One day, Chirac finds that his competitors have lowered the price of their software to $39.95. Since there is little variability in his product compared to his competitors, Chirac suspects his customers will not see significant value in his product over the others at the original price. He opts to also sell his software for $39.95 and uses marketing and cost-cutting strategies to improve his profit. If you are using a competition-based pricing model, a set-it-and-forget approach will not work. You need to constantly observe your competitor strategies, analyze market trends, and continuously adjust your pricing and promotional strategies. From the Introduction to Pricing course, you learned that a small business cannot engage in a price war with large businesses. Initially, you can use lower prices to gather market share, but in the long run, you will not be able to compete on price. There will always be someone who will set a lower price. In the long run, you can only compete by providing value-added services. So the best strategy is to set a price that is competitive enough while still allowing you to cover the value-added services you provide, recover your costs, and make a profit. Now that you have learned about the three basic pricing models, how do you choose which one is best for your business? Here are some guidelines for successfully setting prices for your small business. Calculate your costs and price your products or services correctly. Make sure that you don't underprice your products or service. At the very least, you must cover all of your costs in the long run. Find out your competitors' prices and ensure that you set a price that will maintain your competitiveness. Take advantage of tiered pricing. You can set a front-end price and then add options for which the customer will be willing to pay more. Analyze your conversion rates. For example, if you're making a sale to only 1 out of 10 potential customers, then it may be a sign that your prices are too high. Focus on your product or service. Make sure it is the absolute best you can offer at the price your target market is willing to pay. The advantage of a small business is that customers have direct access to the owner. You have to be the face behind the product or service you offer. Use this as a value add for your business over others. Create a brand, analyze the market, and then set prices that the customers are willing to pay. Regardless of the pricing method you choose, a break-even analysis helps you ascertain the volume of sales you need to achieve to recover your costs at a certain price. You will need information about the following. Fixed costs. Fixed costs are expenses like monthly rent, salaries to be paid, and insurance premiums to be paid at regular intervals. Make sure you calculate the monthly cost of each of these items for this analysis. If you pay certain fixed costs only once a year, make sure you are adding the monthly portion of the cost. Variable costs. Variable costs include the cost for producing your product or delivering your service, maintaining inventory, transporting products, and buying additional equipment, which keep changing with sales volume. Price. Price is the amount of money your customer pays for a specific product or service. The break-even quantity, or BEQ, is the quantity of products you have to sell per month to recover your costs. To calculate BEQ, subtract your cost per unit from your price per unit, then divide your fixed costs per month by that number. Note that the time frame can change to suit your needs. For example, if you want to know how many units you'll have to sell each year, calculate your yearly fixed costs and use them in the formula instead of your monthly fixed costs. Here is a sample break-even analysis calculation. Suppose that you have started a business of assembling computers. Your fixed cost is $1,000 a month, including rent and utility charges. The variable cost for each computer assembled is $500. You would like to charge $550 per computer. At that price, your BEQ is 20. This means you will have to sell 20 computers a month at that price to break even. Setting the appropriate price also depends on the industry you are in. For example, if you are selling used cars, you will probably use customer-based pricing. You can assess the customer and sell the car at a price the customer will be able to pay or is willing to pay. If you are in a retail business, you can try to decrease your costs and sell at the lowest price. If you are providing an exclusive service, like designer clothes, you can set a price high enough to make your business exclusive to the customers at the high end of the market. Also, the cost structure and customer behavior vary from industry to industry. What you have learned in this course is a starting point for how you can set your prices. You can adjust your pricing model based on the industry you are in and your specific situation. By now, you have probably realized that no pricing model is perfect. In the Introduction to Pricing course, you learned about the disadvantages of the three pricing models. The best way to set your price is to use a unique mix of each pricing model, which means you don't stick to one pricing model but mix elements from three pricing models: cost-based, customer-based, and competitor-based. To set the right price, you need to consider your costs and perform research on your customers and competitors. Even while following a customer-based or competitor-based pricing model, you must ensure you are covering your costs. If you are following a cost-based model, you will still need to ensure that your customers are willing to buy your product at that price. Sometimes you may have to lower your prices. Sometimes you may have to provide value-added services. And sometimes you may have to introduce a product or service at a very high price to ensure that it is perceived as premium. You have reached the end of the course. Now you should be able to explain why pricing is important. List the different pricing models. Explain how to use a cost-based pricing model. Explain how to use a customer-based pricing model. Explain how to use a competition-based pricing model. Identify the pricing model for a business. Now, what should you do? Follow these steps to begin applying your knowledge of pricing models. Step 1. Calculate your costs. Step 2. Check whether any of the scenarios described is applicable to you. Step 3. Apply the pricing models you learned to set the price for one of your products or services. Step 4. Check whether any of your current pricing models needs to be revised based on what you learned. Step 5. Revise the models if required.